It is according to my phone, it is 6:44 and 50 seconds. So I would like to call the public hearing on local law number 1 of 2023, a moratorium, temporary moratorium on certain applications.
Bill, screens are on.
Yeah. Okay.
Next one. What we want.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah.
There's Michael. Okay, there we are. Thank you. I'd like to call the public hearing on local law number 1 of 2023 to order. This local law and this public hearing was properly noticed in the town's papers. And before we get into the public hearing, I just have an administrative announcement to make. And that is because the County of Columbia has not had a chance to review local law number 1 of 2023. It will not be considered for adoption tonight, which means we will probably adopt local law number 2, which is the volunteer firefighter moratorium, as local law number 1, which will make the moratorium law local law number 2. We will pass a resolution to that effect during the regular meeting, but I just wanted everybody to know that there was some tap dancing that we're going to have to do with the numbering scheme because of the sequence that we are doing these local laws in. So with that being said, let me open the public hearing on local law number 1, the moratorium, and ask Mr. Clark for any opening comments.
Just one update. In January, I introduced local law number 1, proposing that temporary moratorium on applications regarding hospitality-related uses. And that proposal had resulted from extensive coordination with both Nan and John Lyons. During the past couple of weeks, I've succumbed to the need to tweak and improve, and as a result, have done further coordination with Nan and John to ensure that local law number 1 does what it's intended to do, but without becoming burdensome. And one part of the effects of the moratorium, the current text cites short-term rentals as a use affected by the moratorium. However, on further thought, the STR regulations were adopted in late 2020. They are among the most recent amendments that we have incorporated into the zoning law, and they appear to be working reasonably well. There is little likelihood that there will be substantive changes to the STR provision. And I would note furthermore that the short-term regs are not driving the proposal to pause and to examine other hospitality-related uses. You might say they're merely along for the ride. So at the town board meeting later this evening, I will recommend that the town board delete short-term rental from the list of hospitality-related uses that are subject to the proposed moratorium. Just an update.
Okay, thank you. Let me open it up for public comment. Anybody in the audience have any comments on local law number 1?
I have a question. Is hospitality a defined term, or we just kind of accept what it is?
Carol, as I mentioned when I introduced this at the January meeting, it is hospitality or hospitality-related uses is not a term currently in the zoning law. What is in the zoning law is the actual uses that constitute hospitality things. B&Bs, motels, hotels, campgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. So hospitality-related uses is an umbrella term that we have applied. Basically, as I mentioned in January, you could define it as commercial enterprises, that is businesses that provide guests with services. Such services typically include lodging, accommodations, food and drink, recreational facilities and activities, personal service amenities, sometimes event space. That's the rough umbrella.
People know what it applies to, because that's the important part. I need to know if I fall into that.
That is simply an umbrella term we've been using.
Yeah, and the specific details are in the local law. Every one of the particular uses that is affected is listed. So that's how you'll know. Other comments from anyone?
I didn't understand what you said, I'm sorry, about you were gonna suggest that one would be exempt from, I didn't understand what.
Short-term rentals was one of the uses. You have things like B&Bs and you have hotels and motels and things of that sort. One of the uses that was cited in the law to be under the moratorium would have been short-term rentals. We have no need perceptively, since the regulations on the short-term rentals are so relatively new and appear to be working. Took a little education, but they're getting there. That it and short-term rentals were not driving, if you will, the need for local law number one, moratorium. So it seemed reasonable simply to delete them. It doesn't mean that we can't consider them if they come up, but they just won't be subject to the moratorium.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, my name is Jim Decker. I'm the new kid on the block.
Welcome.
I just finished building a house on Under Mountain Road. And it's taken me almost 3 years, given COVID. Twice as long as I planned and almost twice as much as I planned. And I'm here tonight because I had some thoughts about short-term rental, because I want to be able to rent my house as an Airbnb for a couple of weekends a month. So I can afford to actually live there now that I spent all this money. But you just solved my problem, so thank you very much. I'll go on my way.
Have a good evening.
Glad we could accommodate.
Jim, welcome to Anglin.
If I knew you were this good at solving problems, I would have bet you a long time.
Okay, other comments from anybody in the audience for the town board? Any comments from anyone participating via Zoom?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. I have one other suggested exclusion, and that is camps that are currently in operation. There's one camp in town. It's the Berkshire Taconic camp on Empire Road. I would recommend we consider during our regular session excluding any existing camps like that. I think it's the only one. And the reason for excluding them in my mind is that they are getting ready for their summer season, which is something that requires construction and this and that and the other thing. And if they are forced to comply with this moratorium, they will not be able to do some needed repairs and maintenance to get ready for 50, 100, 150 kids. Since this camp is in operation and they're not going to be changing the number of people who come, I think it's reasonable that we consider also making this exception to existing camps. That would be my only other suggestion in terms of what you had brought up in regards to STRs.
We can take that up in the town.
Yep. Other questions or comments about the moratorium? Going once, going twice? Ruth, do you have a question? Jay? Tom? Will? Carol? Monica? Bonnie?
No questions.
Jim? You? David?
We talked about camps. We actually have another camp. We have Camp Ann. which is on Four
New
Corners
York
Road.
State Camp.
I was gonna say, but that's a New York State camp and they're governed by New York State Dormitory
Correct.
Authority, so we have no say.
Correct.
That is, quite honestly, I believe a problem, but that's okay.
I second that.
Yep.
That's
Okay,
the
any,
only other camp is that one.
That I know of.
Yeah.
well, Pontiac is on Route 7, but they're in Copic.
Not in Akron,
Pontiac.
so we really can't say much about it.
Right. Okay, anybody on Zoom? One last chance.
You want to maybe clarify that to the public that this is only a 9-month.
Yes, this is a
Correct.
temporary moratorium. Yep, for 9 months with the possibility of extension. But that is correct. Good point, Bonnie. Thank you. So, Phil, nobody on Zoom?
No, Nan just joined, so you might want to repeat yourself.
Okay, well, Nan is here, not for this portion of it,
Okay.
but for a future portion. John Lyons is on. I don't know if John has any comments to make. No, okay. Then it's 6:55. Could I get a motion to adjourn the public hearing, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. I would now like to open up the public hearing for local law number 2, which will become local law number 1 shortly, which is a local law authorizing a property tax exemption of up to 10% for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. This local law is made possible by a recent New York State law that requires towns, counties, and school districts to adopt in order to grant this benefit. Any questions or comments from board members on local law number 2?
When it comes time to vote on it, I believe I have to recuse myself.
Yep.
From voting on it.
Yep.
But I do have a couple things I'd like. I think when you just stated it, the law doesn't mean they want us to vote on it, they want us to consider it. Or not, or you said
Yes, I'm
consider
sorry.
adopting it, but we have to vote on adopting it.
Right.
I can tell you right now, we had our fire district meeting Tuesday night this week. And we're still working. One of the things that really weird law per se in that, the town gets to vote on it. The school district gets to vote on it. The county gets to vote on it. You know, and decide what they want to do and how they want to do it. But then they come to the fire district and they want the fire district to certify all the participants. And quite honestly, the law isn't really so clear on who should be the participants and who shouldn't be. So we're working on that portion right now, the fire district. And there are other things, you know, as I said, the fire district, I guess, I hope I can speak for the fire district, that we would urge the town board to adopt this. We're just trying to figure out who's eligible and who's not.
Yes. And the application timeframe for qualifying for the 2024 town tax, which would be circulated in January of 2024, is March 1st. Yeah, so there's virtually no time. But we passed the law tonight. We will be able to accept applications if anyone is interested in applying, and there's some question about whether if it is only a town benefit, whether it makes any sense for a firefighter or an ambulance volunteer to request the benefit if they are also qualified for and are receiving the income tax benefit, which would be substantially higher in the initial phase.
If you, there's a lot of things going on right now. I know that on on Facebook, there's a lot of different things being talked about statewide about trying to convince the state to allow the income tax benefit to work with this, along with this reduction.
Right.
There are a bunch of different things being pushed right now.
Yep.
And one of the reasons, quite honestly, that the fire district is taking its time trying to figure this out. I don't believe that the school district is gonna have their, vote on their exemption by March first.
Right.
And I'm certain the county's not gonna vote on their exemption by
Right.
March first. But quite honestly, we figured that anybody that might qualify for this exemption would still be okay based on what they can already do.
Mhm.
So we wanted to take our time to
Yep.
figure it out.
Yep.
This is something, quite honestly, that goes along, we're a little concerned as an organization that this is kind of like the bill that was passed several years ago about cancer insurance for everyone. And the fact that that insurance didn't cover the 3 most prevalent cancers that firemen get.
Right.
And it's more of a feel-good operation than a really trying to help us out.
Yep.
But we obviously want to take care of as I said, every little piece helps us, and we want to take advantage of every little piece and try and make it work. And I hope I've properly represented the fire district. in
Thank you,
that
David.
case.
I have a question.
Yep.
How many of your firefighters actually own property?
It's different about who owns, because quite honestly, there are stipulations in the law. If it's not your primary residence, you're not covered.
Yeah.
If you own a business, you're not exempt. You lose your exemption. So quite honestly, oh yeah. If you own a business and run it from home,
Oh, from your house.
well, your property, there's quite a few of us that do.
You know,
You're not eligible for it.
so you wouldn't be eligible. Who knows?
Well,
Well, and one of the biggest things that we complain about and we believe, the Akron Fire Company, has a huge number of, spouses that are involved in it,
Mhm.
and none of the spouses are involved. Well, how do you figure that out? So quite honestly, and that's part of what our fire district and everybody we're looking into. We believe less than a third of our membership is going to be eligible for this. So, and we want to help that third.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things, it's kind of like, well, are you really helping us or aren't you? And I'm not begrudging it, and I'm not, we put in a lot of hours, these guys care a lot. I gotta tell you, and I probably shouldn't be doing this during our public hearing. We're gonna have a bunch of guys tomorrow night going out and doing an event at Catamount for the Special Olympics and trying to raise money. I mean, these guys come out all the time and do a lot of different things, and they deserve credit for what they do. And we just want to see them represented as well as they can be.
other comments or questions from members of the audience? Or members of the town board? Or anybody on Zoom? Okay. So could I get a motion to adjourn the public hearing on the volunteer firefighter and ambulance worker tax exemption? All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. It's a little bit after 7. So I think I will call the February town board meeting to order. Please join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here tonight. Philip, how many people do we have on Zoom? 12. That's pretty good. Okay, first item, recusal check. David.
I have to recuse myself from the vote on the local law, 1 or 2, whichever it may be.
Okay, yeah, while we are on that topic, I would like to make a motion that we change local law number 2, the volunteer firefighter property tax exemption law, to local law number 1, and retitle local law number 1, the temporary moratorium on hospitality, as local law number 2. Any questions about that? Can I get a second to that motion, please?
You got it.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, good. Now we have these properly denominated. Minutes from the January town board meeting. Ruth circulated the minutes. Thank you, Ruth. Any questions or comments about the minutes? No? If not, can I get a motion to approve, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you very much. Next item is the planning process review that Nan Stolzenberg did for us. Nan, are you on Zoom? Is Nan up there?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting.
No problem. Thanks very much for joining us. I know you
Sure.
have spent enormous amounts of time interviewing people about the process for handling applications from the public through the building department, the planning department, the zoning board of appeals. And you've had multiple reviews with people. You documented your discussions and came up with some recommendations. And I would appreciate it if you could just summarize the next steps and recommendations you feel we should undertake to put this into motion.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think that you have a lot of the information in that memo. I know that was quite a long memo with lots of stuff in it. But I think that there's a couple of things that I think starting out the gate that we should really work on. Some of which that JL may have will work together on, but she may have already started on some of this. I really think that some of the issues is process, like the project flow from the time it walks in the door to how it gets through the office to the planning board of the ZBA. I think that there was universal desire for updated application forms that clearly outline the expectations, the information expectations, the submittal expectations, checklists, so that both the applicant knows what's expected, what the staff knows what's expected, what the planning board knows expected. So I think one of the first places to start is really to do some housekeeping by cleaning up and updating the application forms and checklists so that we can have a better flow of projects from the time they walk into the door to the time we get to the planning board. One of the issues is that there's a lot of frustration, I think, with on different levels with projects that get to the planning board prematurely. And then the planning board kind of prematurely like one of their first steps, for instance, they often just start the public hearing before they really reviewed it, before they've determined the application is complete for review, when they may not even have all of the information they need as per the zoning. So I think that one of the first things I would start off with would be to tighten those things up, work on the forms, work on the checklist so that we have when the application gets to the planning board and the zoning board of appeals, that they know what the application is, what process it's going to take, what the action is, what the materials that were supposed to be submitted are, and to follow that through each step. I think that's a relatively straightforward task. It's basically grounded in what the zoning law already lists as opportunity or information needs that they have. So that's one of the places that I think is really important to work on. I also think that there needs to be something for the public that sets the expectation of how their project will move through the system. I think it's more of a public information need so that they clearly know the steps and the timing that this is going to take. So I think that is kind of part of the information flow and the process flow. I really would like to, I don't know how we do this other than keep reminding everybody. I think it's really critical that we stick to the 10-day rule. There's a 10-day rule that says applications that come to the town after the 10 days between then and when the meeting starts, they don't get put on the agenda. That is often a real issue. Projects come in and nobody has had a chance to review them yet. And then they get to the planning board and the applicant is expecting to have some sort of action. And that's just not realistic. And so we really need to get everybody, even though it's hard and people will say, oh, I just came up and this is the first time I've had to get to the town board. There's all sorts of reasons that people give, but we really need to give everybody at least those 10 days to review the application, get the materials to the town or to the planning board members. If there's a consultant involved, they need to have it. There needs to be some meaningful review to even determine whether it's ready for the planning board or the ZBA. And I think that's a really critical step that we kind of slip on. So between the forms and really tightening up the process of how it gets to the planning board and giving the planning board or the ZBA the information that they are kind of missing, that will help a lot. I also think another thing that is very important, maybe not for every project, but the planning board has asked, and I think it could be very valuable both to the applicants and to the planning board, would be to have consultant review, at least on some of the more complex projects that come in. I mean, not necessarily a lot line adjustment or a minor subdivision or abbreviated site plan. I think the board should think about that, but I think that we have examples where, when we have myself, George, John has been involved, where you have some professional help to point out things. The law is complex. You got a lot of pieces to it. And I think it's good to have at least some review so that when the planning board gets the project, they know what questions to ask. As a consultant, we don't say, oh, you should deny this permit or you should accept this permit. But it's like, hey, here are some questions that we're concerned about. Here are the areas that we think you should explore. Here are some information needs that we think need to be addressed. So I would suggest that the board, we can be working on the forms and the flow and all of that, but I don't know yet whether you have the setup to kind of bake into the system for certain projects, at least, maybe special use permits or those going through site plan review, to be able to easily have that consultant review upfront, right in like a preliminary review, so we can start the planning board out more efficiently and more confidently with the information they need to review. So there's a lot of other ideas in there, ranging from, looking into, some towns have planning software that tracks the project through the various stages, to, making sure that we have, when the planning board makes a decision, that there's a piece of paper that the applicant can take to the building department to say, hey, look, I've been approved. My project was approved last night at the planning board. I'm now eligible to get a building permit. And I think that's one of the areas that some people express were kind of slow on the uptake was that it takes a while to get from the planning board decision to someone being able to get a building permit. So we can tighten those things up relatively easy. So those are, I think there's like 10 pages of ideas. There's a lot to consider, but those are the things that I think are easy to address, very much needed, and everybody agreed that that would be extremely helpful.
Thank you, Nan. Questions for Nan?
I have just a comment that number 9 talks about developing job descriptions. I think we need to work on that too. It's real basic, but we don't have them necessarily. And I think there's been some confusion about that too, so.
Well, and I added that in is because I think both for staff and for volunteers, it's really important that people know what they're being asked to do. And new planning board members, I mean, being on the planning board it's a daunting responsibility, and most people don't really know what is expected of them. So to have something that describes what the expectations are as a volunteer job description, and then certainly for the planning department and the building department, so that it's clear what JL is doing, what Ed is doing, how they interact. I just think that would help with the communication and the flow and the interaction.
Good.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
Important.
So it's not necessarily their job description that you would, I mean, I guess it could be something that you could use to hire someone, but it's more like the internal workings and expectations of that position.
Good, thank you. Any questions or comments, Dave or you? No. Amy, do you have any questions or comments?
I think she's muted.
I'm muted. Oh, now I'm unmuted. Yeah, no, Nan, I just want to thank you for this document. It's really very helpful. I've been through it as well with CAC, and I think you've received the comments from CAC as well.
Yes.
It's desperately needed, and I thank you very much.
You're welcome. I learned a lot, and and I was from working with Hugh and the ZRC on making all of the zoning changes. We kind of forget about how those get implemented, and so I think this was a really good exercise, and will strengthen all of the good work that you've done for years on getting the zoning where it needs to be. Now we need to work on the administration and the implementation of that a little more.
Yeah, but it really sets a good path for us, and thank you.
Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Jay? No? Anybody
I think
else?
John has his hand up.
John?
John Lyons.
Okay, John Lyons.
Yes, hi. All of those things sound wonderful. I wanted to mention one other thing that we did in Rhinebeck that turned out to be something that worked well, was that we redid all of our forms also. And one of the things that we tried to do on the form was to explain in a brief way what the approvals are and why you need them. Because a lot of people, believe it or not, they just come into the town hall, oh yeah, I got to get the permit. They actually don't even really understand what site plan approval is, what a special use permit is. They just know that they have to go there and kind of start following the breadcrumbs so they can do their project. And what we found in Rhinebeck was that a lot of questions about those kinds of things, the staff ended up spending a lot of time fielding questions about those things, and that if we could provide some basic educational pieces with the application packet, it ended up saving time because those questions got answered before people had to come back and talk to the staff. The other thing, I haven't seen Nan's memo, so this is already covered. I apologize, but the other technique that gets utilized in some other municipalities for, not for every single application, but for more complicated applications, is to have a pre-application conference where the applicant sits down with the planning board chair and maybe Nan, the planner, and you go over the concept of the project and you have a chance to talk with each other about what, it's not a public meeting because there's no quorum there, but you get to talk with the applicant and have a dialogue about what the expectations are going to be. You know, you're going to need this. This is I'm just telling you ahead of time, this is the type of thing that we think the planning board is going to be concerned about with your project. You should start giving some thought to that. And that can be a way to really, with the projects that involve more, that can be a way that helps both the planning board and the applicant get themselves to the point of a complete application in a shorter time period.
Great idea.
Good idea. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, and that does kind of feed back into the notion of having this preliminary review early in when an application comes in, and some of that is an engineering review where the engineer would look at the stormwater and the transportation aspects and the other engineering. Some of it is consistency with the zoning, some of it are planning related. But that doesn't actually have to be like super involved. I have found that the preliminary review, you put like 2 hours in, you get to know the site plan or whatever their subdivision, whatever they're looking for. And in really a fairly short amount of time, it's easy to put a memo together that says, hey, everything looks great. I think it's good to go. Or here are the things that needs a special attention. Or sometimes we say, this is really complex and we're gonna need to have an escrow for the attorney or for more engineering help or whatever. And I just think that, and I don't know if your fee schedule currently supports that, but I really think that for the communities that I'm involved in that kind of bake in this preliminary review with the professionals when they're needed, really helps the planning board to be more effective and the process more efficient. And so everybody's happy when we're more effective and more efficient.
Yeah,
You-
the only downside is that usually the consultant involvement, it adds a little bit of cost to the applicant, but most of the time, in my experience, the applicants are interested in a time efficient process. So
Yep. If you had a comment.
Reinforcing some of Nan's points, but certainly John's. The comp plan itself calls for how-to booklets. We produced a couple of them some time ago, but that's the sort of thing I think that John's alluding to, at least in part. And my point is that the comp plan already calls for such educational materials, not necessarily and exclusively to building applications or things of that sort, but they fit into the plan. The other point I would make is that while you're talking about the review up front that Nan has already articulated and that John's touched upon, Nan's report also touches upon something that was emphasized and is in the law already, the sketch plan conference, which is some of the experienced planning board members said literally years ago now, can save the time, the difficulty, the complexities and so on, if they could just talk them through up front. And that too is already in place. As Nan has pointed out in her report, it's simply not used to the effect that it could be.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else on Zoom have any questions or comments?
Just have a quick question for John. This is Amy. Are you able to share the Rhinebeck documents with us so that we can use them as a template or a model?
oh yeah, sure. They're they get given out to every applicant.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we had a big debate about the detail that would be provided, because when it started getting a little longer, there was some pushback about, people aren't gonna want to read, 2 pages. So it's been very condensed. I can send you the one the best example is the one that's actually been prepared for the ZBA that explains what the variances are and what variances are and why you need them. And
Okay,
so I'm
yeah,
happy
that
to
would be
send those
helpful.
along.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that whatever we do on paper, we should also make very much available on the town's website, because that's where people can go easily read through these things, and I think we can really more effectively use the town's website that way. So we would just coordinate that all together, the paper and the website.
Any comments? No. Anybody else have anything?
I have one other question. I don't know if you just mentioned or if you looked just into it at all, but there's been a little confusion with our escrow process. Is that something we need to look at? How that's managed?
Well, you know, you have, I think it's local law 4 of, I forget what year it is now, 2009, whatever year the escrow law was established. I think that is worth dusting off and re-looking at. I know that, I don't remember if it was Jal or Ed that talked about it seems kind of cumbersome how the escrow has to be approved by the planning board first. And the question was raised, can the staff, or can there be some other mechanism that the escrow is collected without it going through multiple meetings? I think that's something that we would talk to John about, what the legality of that is. So I think we could work on the efficiency of getting the escrow going. And I know that there was an issue that was raised at the end about needing to have escrow in place so that an engineer can go out and inspect something after it's been improved to see if they actually followed through on the SWIP and the other engineering features, because Ed indicated like that's not his area of expertise. That actually is already in the law. There's already a whole section in there about collecting escrow to do that very inspection. And so I think that was a really good example of how there is something in the zoning about it, but we're not using it effectively.
And I would say further on the escrow is the way that a lot of other communities do it is that there isn't a decision-making process on the escrow. There's a standard escrow amount gets set that has to be delivered with the application. And what you need to do is to really sit down and figure out what the likely, like in some other communities where we know it's going to go to the planner before the application is declared to be complete, and it might even go to the lawyer. You're already at a point where you have to build in at least a few hours of consultant time at the very beginning. So in other communities, they'll set an initial escrow deposit amount of like $750, and that's what every applicant has to post when you deliver your application. So there's no debating or deliberation associated with the amount, and then whatever doesn't get used gets returned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Anybody on Zoom have any other comments or questions? Anybody in the audience? On board?
And how are we gonna implement this, putting a committee together?
Well, I was gonna, Nan, would you do us the favor of stepping back and giving us a proposal for how to implement your recommendations and all the thoughts that were kicked around today? Give us a proposal that the town board can approve, hopefully, and then get you and whoever else you need from the town started on the process of putting this into place. Okay?
Yes, I will absolutely get you that scope and budget as a proposal, for sure.
Thank you very much, because I think that will answer Bonnie's question. And I know that the thought has come up from Jay and others that we might want a committee to work with you. But again, that would be something for you to think about and how you would
Okay.
use it so that we can perhaps use the committee as a communications tool to spread these ideas around and keep the conversation going. But I think the next most important step will be a proposal from you on what we should do and how you can help us do it.
Okay.
Okay,
I will
Thank you
do that.
okay. Anything else, Mr. Clark?
I think Nan has another commitment that we're getting close to.
Yes, Nan, thank you very much for joining
Okay.
us.
All right, yeah, no problem. I'll get you that proposal.
Thank you. Jay?
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.
I was going to clarify that the reason I asked for a committee, to help kind of put these things in place is that it would give me some weight and also some input from other departments so that we could kind of improve the process.
Right. Yeah, I think Nan will probably incorporate the idea of a committee in her proposal. And you and she can work out how that might work. So I think it's probably a useful thing to do. Okay. Next item on the agenda. We have the revaluation update. Suzette and Renee, are you all still with us?
I'm
Suzette?
here. Yes, this is Suzette.
Okay. We can hear you, but we can't see you.
That's
Not
Suzanne.
Suzette.
That's not Suzette, but
That's Amy.
that's Amy, right?
Wait, I see Suzette, you don't see. Oh, that's weird. Something weird. All right.
Suzette, can you hear us?
Where's she been?
She can see us, we can't hear us.
Yes, I can. I
Oh,
think,
there you are. Hi.
yeah, I think the host had me muted for a bit there.
There
but
you go.
yes.
Well, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your progress report on the revaluation.
Yes, and Renee, your assessor is here as well. Renee, do you want me to start?
Yeah, please do. And I was the same position as you were, Suzette. I was unmuted for a few minutes, so
Okay.
hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yep.
All right, so as you all know, the town has been working on a revaluation of all of the properties within the town of Ankrum, and this has been quite a lengthy process. And we're nearing the end. Renee, as your assessor, has been reviewing the values that were generated by the vendor that we use for the valuation portion. He's made changes, you know, as he sees fit. And in the end, he's the one that has to be comfortable with the values because he'll be the one that will be signing off on the tentative assessment roll that will be filed May 1st. But right now, Renee is also working on updating exemptions, any exemption applications that he has received, as many as he can do. Unfortunately, these notices that I'll be talking about in a minute have to be in the mail by March 1st. Exemption renewal applications are not due to the assessor legally until March 1st. So there are a number of exemptions that have not been submitted back to the assessor at this point. So both the cover letter and the notice that will be mailed indicate that, you know, these notices and estimated change in taxes may not reflect the property tax exemptions. So there's, just wanted to mention that. Let's see.
Suzette, excuse me, did you say that again? You said that the valuations that we're going to send around will not include the exemptions?
Some of the exemptions will not be updated prior to those notices being mailed out. And that's because exemptions don't have to be filed by until March 1st. These
Okay.
notices have to be in the mail by March 1st.
Okay.
So whatever exemptions are on the file will be reflected
there. Okay,
at that
good.
point in
Good.
time when we
Thank you.
process these notices.
Thank
But
you.
they may not be totally updated.
Right.
So, so the notices that we'll be working on and sending out by March 1st are called assessment disclosure notices. And what those notices will show is what the assessed value was last year for the property, what the preliminary assessed value is for this year for 2023, and the net change in that value between last year and this year. These notices will also show a very hypothetical estimated change in properties taxes. So I say it's hypothetical because a lot goes into calculating a school tax rate and a county tax rate. So they are hypothetical, these estimated taxes, primarily because we have the town of Ancram's preliminary values for 2023, but we don't have the other tentative values yet for the other towns within the Pine Plains School District or the other towns within the Taconic Hills School District. The other part that we don't know at this point is we don't know what the tax levies will be for the 23-24 school tax or the January 24 town and county tax. So in order to produce these notices, the state says you use the preliminary values for the town that's doing the reassessment, but you use last year's assessments for all of the other municipalities in the county for producing a county hypothetical rate, and in the schools for producing a school hypothetical rate. So the estimates are the best that we can capture at that point in time. There will be changes to the town's taxable values as we move forward from this process. And that will be based on any decisions that Renee as assessor makes after he meets with property owners that may not agree with their preliminary assessment, as well as any changes that are made as the result of grievances that are filed on grievance day in May with the Board of Assessment Review. So just wanted to point out that yes, those estimated taxes will be on there. We're required, if the town wants to receive state aid at the end of this project, this is the notice that the town of Ancram would have to mail out because your equalization rate last year was lower than 85%. So we're following the process that's given to us by New York State. With that being said, Renee's done his part in reviewing the values. There could still be values that may not be accurate for a property. And at this point in time, once those notices go out to the property owners, it will be up to the property owner, if they do not agree with their preliminary assessment, to prove why, or to prove a different value, to prove whatever they feel the market value is for their property. And the cover letter that will be printed on the reverse side of these notices will indicate what type of documentation the property owners can submit to the assessor as backup or proof to perhaps a different value for their property. And some of the examples of that supporting documentation would be perhaps they have a recent appraisal, recent sales of similar properties that have sold in their neighborhood, photos that show the physical condition of the property. Maybe the physical condition on the inside is poor and not reflective of what the data collectors or the assessor would see on the outside of the property. So photographs can really help in that situation. And if they have their property listed on the current market for less than what the preliminary value is, by all means, they can submit that to the assessor as well. So there will be some homework that the property owners will have to do at this point. But the town is going to make everything available that they possibly can to the property owners to help with that process. And the preliminary assessments of all of the properties in Ankrum, as well as all of the property inventory data, will be displayed online. That will be available to the property owners. There'll be information, handouts that the state produces on how to estimate a market value for your property, questions and answers on reassessments, which you may have on your town website already, but they'll be specifically on the assessor's page. And property owners will have a chance at this point to make an appointment to meet with the assessor. So, and that will all be talked about in the cover letter that Renee prepared. There'll be certain dates and times set aside. Since we are a full-time office, we offer to the towns to have the property owners call here, and we schedule those appointments for the assessor. That way, you know, they can call anytime between 9 and 5 during the month of March while those appointments are being held. The appointments will be only 10 minutes in length, and that is because the assessor may very well have a lot of people to speak with and see and get through. And that's why when I talk to people on the phone, I tell them, in addition to any supporting documentation, I will tell them to attach a cover letter with it, and anything that they want to be sure that the assessor captures in their conversation, that they include that in that cover letter. So that when Renee goes back and reviews the documentation after the meeting, he has, you know, some of the highlights that the property owner wants to be sure to get across. He'll have that right there with the paperwork as well. If property owners can't make an appointment, or you know, they're savvy with doing everything online, and they're or they can, you know, pick up a form at the town hall. They don't have to have an appointment. They can simply submit the documentation to the town, and Renee will review that. No decision will be made during this 10-minute appointment. He will review everything and will make a decision, and the property owners will receive that decision. They'll be put in the mail in early May, so that they do have opportunity. If they don't agree with the assessor's decision, they'll then have the opportunity to go on to the grievance day in May and meet before, or present probably the same or similar documentation to the grievance board, and have them make a decision at that point in time. But by sending out these notices early, it basically gives the property owner more time to get information together, to talk with the assessor about why they don't agree with the preliminary value, but also to supply some supporting information so that Renee can make a decision based off of that. Trying to think if there's anything else. Renee, do you have anything you want to add?
Excuse me, just a few things. As usual, Suzette is a hard act to follow. She makes an excellent presentation. I will say that when you get your disclosure notices and you find that it's not to your expectation, or it's not reasonable, maybe more than you thought, please come talk to me first. And that's what the schedules are for. I've said this for years, whether it was a reval year or a non-reval year, whether it was Ankrum or another town, come talk to me first. I'm not going to say I'm more reasonable, but I do feel I am reasonable, and I'm certainly the first step. And if we can come to an agreement on a different value, if that's indicated based on evidence provided, then you don't need to go the next step to the grievance board or further beyond. So please come talk to me first, and there's ample opportunity for that. I also will say that through this process, and I know Suzette said it's coming to the end, it's actually getting close, but there's still a bit of work to be done. I will say I do appreciate her work, Judy's work, and certainly not last or least, Monica. She's been wonderful to work with, and she's been a real support in this process going forward.
Good, thank you.
I just have one question.
Yes,
When is Grievance Day? In May?
I believe grievance day
It's
is,
the 24th, which I think is the fourth Wednesday after the fourth Tuesday.
right. It's the Wednesday.
May
yeah.
May 24th, what time of day?
We do it as is it 3 hours or 4 hours in a block at night?
4 hours. Typically, most towns do it like 4 to 8 PM.
Right.
And we, in the conference room, is where we've been doing it because court is in here Wednesday.
Right. Okay,
All right, thank you.
questions for Suzette or Renee?
Yeah, and this is Amy. I have a question. I actually raised this with Renee last month, but in the past, comparables were used to help support a disagreement in the estimate or the assessment, and comparables aren't going to be available at the time of the mailing. When will they be available? So that, I mean, there are people that don't really know what the value of their house is unless they're able to like gauge it against a neighbor's house. And if that house is assessed at a higher or lower level, I mean, you're just sort of in a vacuum and not knowing where you sit unless you have the comparables.
Well, when there's a reassessment such as this and the town goes to 100%, you don't compare your assessment to your neighbor's assessment. You have to compare your assessment to similar properties that have sold. And I believe that there will be sales listings of residential properties on the town website. But we also have sales listings on the county website that shows any style house that sold within the town of Ankrum. We run it for the entire county, but it will show the style of the house, the acreage. It will show the square footage of the house, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, that kind of thing. So that additional information will be available online for property owners to review, both at the county, when we run our countywide, and I believe Renee is going to have that available on the town website as well, just specific to the town of Ankrum sales. But one thing, I know that property owners, I believe that property owners may want to go back to sales that occurred prior to 2020. And unfortunately, you can't do that. We can only go back a few years. We have to use current sales. This is our current market, and that's how the market value is established based on properties that have, we do go back typically 3 years or so, especially in a small town, so that there are enough sales to establish good comparables. But there will be lists of properties that have sold available to the public. And that's where they can go look at their comparables. But also, with that being said, once they find a property that sold that is a good comparable, they can go on to the database, the assessment database online, and look at, the rest of the inventory. And you do, on the back of an assessment worksheet that Renee's going to make available, they'll be able to do, kind of pluses and minuses of their property in comparison to a property that sold. So maybe the property that sold had a garage and the property owner's property didn't have a garage. So you take those things into account. So there will be sales that will be available. The specific comparables that were used for their property, that won't be available online. But all of the residential sales that were used to develop comparables for the other residential properties in the town, that will be available.
But when will the tax assessments for the town be online?
Right around March 1st as well. Yep, our goal is to have them up there March 1st as well. When those notices go out, the goal is to have that information updated online.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So
thank you.
there will be a lot of information there, but the average property owner may need some assistance with that process, but when they call here to make an appointment, we try to, remind them what they need to do and where they can go to look at the data as
Suzette,
well.
we have a question here.
I do. So my understanding is this is based because of the time that it took place, this is going to be based on COVID and the amount of flooding we got in when people bought everything for the price of where my house is going to be assessed at, because of how much people have sold them for by jacking them up. Is that my understanding here?
That has become the market, not only in the town of Ankrum, but everywhere in Columbia County and a lot of New York State. But yes, that has become, that is the market. That is a reflection of what your property is worth now.
So, and we'll say, for example, another 2 years, if this doesn't play out the way it is, and the people from the city are tired of coming here and everything starts to divide down, then I'm still gonna have to correspond with that, even though the market's gonna drop. Because you guys
What
on
town, yeah,
at a crappy time. I mean, that makes sense.
what towns have done in the past is if the market does change and does start to decrease, then the assessors don't want to assess for more than market value. So what assessors have done in the past, and I think Renee maybe has even done this in one of his other towns, they trend values down. So assessed values will go down if the market starts to go down, so that the level that the assessor's assessing properties at doesn't go higher than 100%.
So if I can comment on that a minute, Suzette's absolutely right. I have done that. So it's not the goal of an assessor to underassess. It's also not the goal to overassess. So if it's overassessed, we trend down. Unfortunately, Ankrum has been underassessed for a considerable amount of time. Also, having said that, when you get your preliminary disclosure notices, keep in mind that preliminary word. I'm available to discuss it. I also know there have been some people, and many of you have responded very well to the data mailers that were sent out late summer, early fall, and responded with changes. Those changes were made. Unfortunately, not everyone has. So they're going to maybe get these disclosure notices and say, okay, what's this all about? Well, talk to me. If there's something wrong in the inventory that they did not come forward. And again, like Suzette said, the data collectors did an excellent job. They went out around the exterior, they measured, they did, but there were some properties that had gates or obstructions that basically said, do not enter. We don't go there, and we have, and Monica knows as well as I do, we have responded to these folks a lot to say, can we enter? This is vital procedure in the process. And some we heard from and they allowed us in, others we haven't heard from at all. So at some point they may see this disclosure, say, okay, my inventory is wrong or my assessment has gone up. We just want to get this correct, so they need to talk to us and we will get it right. That's part of the reviewing process. So it's the process has moved on, but it's still preliminary in the assessment value.
Thank you, Renee.
And one thing that we're finding that we need to really, really stress a lot. The data mailers that we sent out prior, we only got probably about 20% of them back with people responding. The other big issue is addresses. There's been a lot of transfers that have gone through. The post office has been a bit of a hot mess, not locally, but I think my triggered it to the sorting station.
Yep.
And we are getting volumes of mail back, undeliverable. So we need to stress, if you're not getting your notices, if you're not getting paperwork from here, please contact us. It may
Maybe we
be a
should put
mail
out
problem.
an email to that effect or something.
I did through taxes this year, try to narrow down as much of it as possible. Those last postcards we sent out, we got about maybe 30 of them back. So we're picking it down a little by little, but it's a big problem. And just be aware, if you're not getting something from the town and you're hearing that your neighbors are getting them, it could very well be we have wrong address.
Okay, thank you, Monica.
Yeah.
Any questions, other questions, Amy?
I have just one other quick question. Is there any consideration given to whether or not a property is a primary residence or a secondary residence? In
As
the
far as
tax assessment?
No, not really. It's based on market value. So no, I would say there's no difference in that.
Anybody online have any questions?
Yes.
Yes? Who do we have?
Matthew.
Yeah, so, hi guys, it's Matthew Bernstein.
Hi.
And I'm on the Board of Assessment Review. Hi, Suzette, nice to see you and everybody else. So 2 comments. One, I know Suzette said it, I know Renee said it, but we've got to encourage people to go talk to Renee before they come to the Board of Assessment Review. It's going to be a very busy year. The Board of Assessment Review meets for a limited amount of time, 4 hours between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock to allow for people to come before their working day ends and after their working day ends. But it's going to be a very busy year. And I think sometimes people don't realize that the assessor is the primary person who sets the value. And as Renee said, he's reasonable. And that's absolutely where they should start and not feel that they have to file a grievance if they don't like their assessment. And they may be right about their assessment. They should go talk to Renee. The second thing that I think we should make very clear in notices to the town is this is an assessment process. not a taxing process. And so I heard the gentleman say before, well, what happens if values come back down? Well, if values come back down, everybody's value may come back down. The point of the assessment is to fairly distribute the tax burden across the town. And so while if everyone's values go up, people's taxes will change because they won't go up by exactly the same amount. But it's not like if everybody's values go up and then values as a whole go down, that somehow taxes are going to go up and down. It's an assessment process to fairly distribute the taxes. And the third point is, we should make this point in communications. When people talk to Renee or talk to the Board of Assessment Review, they're talking about their assessment, not about taxes. We have people come to the Board of Assessment Review and say, my taxes are too high. And the Board of Assessment Review and Renee don't have anything to do with the amount of taxes that the town residents as a whole pay, because that's a combination of town expenses, school expenses, and county expenses. And so people should realize that, you know, if their taxes have gone up because their assessment's gone up proportionately more than others, it's just the distribution of taxes. The Board of Assessment Review and the assessor don't determine what the tax burden to be shared is, just the apportionment of those. So I think those 3 points: go to Renee, realize that values are distributed across the town, up or down, and it's about the assessment, not the tax burden itself.
Thank you, Matt.
Excellent point, excellent point.
Good, okay. Anybody else on Zoom have a question? Philip?
Oh, that's it.
Okay, anybody in the audience here? Anybody on the town
I
board?
just have one small extra point.
Yep.
So, Renee and Suzette, we've already talked about this today. We are going to do an overhaul of the assessments page on the website. Suzette sent some great links for people to be able to click on with different pamphlets and
Yep.
different, just a whole bunch of different information.
Right.
I am going to have James, I hope, put like something, a large link on the homepage that says, click here for 2023 reval information. And I ordered today a outside waterproof box so that the paperwork that people need to fill out when they do their appointments, they don't have to come during the time that the town hall is closed, because people work during the day. They might want to stop by after work. I'm gonna have them outside so they can take them home with them, fill them out, and be prepared when they come over there.
Okay, sounds good. Bonnie, anything else? David?
I think these guys have worked really hard at it. I gotta believe the next month or two is gonna be a busy time for them.
Yep.
But I think they've done a good job at it. We've worked hard. I would like to ask Suzette, have you seen prices come down at all in Columbia County in the last couple months?
No, what I have seen is some properties are not selling for what the listing price was. They're selling for less than the actual listing price. So a little bit less of the bidding price wars than, you know, we did have. Just from what I'm seeing, not focused solely on Ankrum, but the median sales price for the county, the state puts a report out. I believe for 2022 was around 350,000, and I'm estimating, or that was for 2021, and I'm estimating 2022 to be around 375,000. So it's still, the sales that we've seen so far are still up there, and I'm guessing Renee will say the same specific to Ankrum.
Well, what I'm noticing is, and this is not only Ankrum, but it's a couple of towns, that I think the high-end sales are still up there. Maybe don't sell quite as fast as it did previously. I think the sales that are valued, or the properties are valued a little bit less, a little slower, but keep in mind the interest rate has gone up. So I think people who have to get a mortgage, it's a little more difficult. On the higher end, I'm not sure a mortgage is involved, so I think that's sort of, you can read into that however you want.
Yeah, okay. Good, you, anything?
I would just note that Renee's proficiency in this business has already been recognized by one customer in an email that I think.
That's good. Renee got a very nice, thoughtful compliment from somebody who talked to Renee last week and was very pleased with the interaction. Did you see that email, Renee?
Was that Mr. Grippo?
You're too busy. Yes, that was. Mr.
Okay, I
Grippo.
think I did see that, yeah. That was interesting because, you know, I mean, he's one of the folks that he had, ironically, he'd gotten the data mailer and sort of forgotten that he'd answered it and we'd corrected it, and then was very pleased by the fact that we'd made all the changes and everything was good. So, you know, that's when the process works well. It's, you know, it's unfortunate when we have people who, like Monica had said, we don't get the data mailers on. We want to get it correct, but we can't get it correct unless we get their input. And the data collectors did the best they could. If they couldn't enter, that's a hard deal. And also we've done some, you know, some imaging, satellite imaging of the property, but yeah, that's not totally indicative of everything. We've had some properties that we've had real questions on exactly what is there. I've reached out to the homeowners with no response. So we'll see when their preliminary assessments come out, whether they reach out, and I'm just as pleased to talk to them as anybody else to get it right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Suzette, for joining us. Renee, thank you very much for all the hard work. And I guess you guys can take a break, have a beer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good night.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Next item, Ruth Whitlinger in the town court report.
Another year, done, closed. 23 closed, 24 moving on. There's only one other court clerk in the county who has 26 years, Brenda Weigelt from Congress. Grandma, we refer to her as Grandma Dora.
We can't see you, so could you stand on the other side of
Okay.
the owl?
All right, that's the docket book of everybody who came in this year.
Okay,
That's the report. I'll put one on Amy's.
Don't trip over the wire
be careful of the wire.
unless you want to jump up.
We should keep some green seconds.
Right on it.
Right. Yeah, that's. And then this is the book of outstanding fines. So we started the year with 51,307 cases. We're now up to 60,367 cases.
You see that blue tape?
Yes,
Right on
and there.
camera.
That's where you are on candid camera.
There we go. So,
Perfect.
Say that again. Ruth.
we started the year with 307 unpaid cases, total of 51,000. Right now, we're at 367 and about 60,000, a little short of 60,000. That's owed to the town. But, you know, I have a plan that every 30 to 60 days, if somebody owes money, they get a letter, a little bit more stern, a little bit more, as I said, someone had called me and said that I was getting mad at them. Well, just make your ticket, and then you don't have to hear from me. But we closed 301 cases this year, one judge. Well, we would have closed 301 if we had 2 or 3 judges, but Judge Redlick was the only judge. I was basically the only clerk. We brought in about $58,000, which the town got to keep about 44%, 43.7. Probably about 5 years ago, the state will reimburse us 25 cents a copy if I keep track of what I sent, like a copy of a ticket, or if I print somebody's driver's abstract. So this year we brought in pinched less than $1,100, which is about 20% of my salary. So that's, to me, that's free money. So I declare that every month. So things are going good. Seasoned clerk. One judge on the second term, one brand new judge who asks all the right questions and says to me, why do we do it that way? And I say, I'll be right back to you. So, 23, 24 years in the same position, it kind of goes by rote. You just keep going and flowing, and that's it. So, the biggest challenge is all of the changes between OCA and the district attorney's office now does not allow personal appearances for traffic tickets. They need to plead by mail through the district attorney's office back to the court. So our DA night or our criminal night that used to have 45, 55 cases, our criminal night this Wednesday night has 4, and that's all they are, criminal cases. So there's a possibility of at least 1, if not 2 jury trials this year. In the town of Ingham. I was hoping to retire after 30 years without doing a jury trial. Might not be able to do that, so. But other than that, you don't get any mastergrams from any of the departments that we deal with, no Office of the State Controller or DCJS or OCA or anybody like that. So things are done and filed on time, hopefully correctly, or I'm sure they let me know. But we just keep going, that's all. So,
Terrific. Thank you very much, Ruth.
anybody have any questions? No? No? Okay.
Anybody on Zoom have any questions for Ruth? Susan Flam or Kathy Redlick, are you on, either of you are on Zoom and would like to make any comments?
No,
They're not, okay. Ruth, thank you.
you're welcome. Have a
What do you
good night.
want to do with these books?
You want me to take them out? Or if you want to look at them, just put them,
Chances are
Okay.
nobody's going to look at them tonight, but can you leave them in the conference room?
Yeah.
Okay, good, perfect. Thank you very much. Next item is the investment opportunity summary. We have housing, water, pavilion, solar, town pool, and pool playground. Is Will Weiss on?
No.
No. Okay, we had a strategic investment committee meeting last week. I guess it was Thursday of last week. Nothing to report on water. James apparently is out of town. Pavilion is on hold for now. Nothing new on solar. Town pool, David, anything new on that?
You told us to hold off for this year, so I've been holding off.
Okay.
Why
don't you-
I can crank them up anytime you
Crank them
want.
up. Why don't you crank them up again? Because we need the information, so we might as well
Okay.
get that started. The pool playground, Ruth and Colleen and Jen have told me that they're working on it. They're getting books of playgrounds and they'll have more for us in March. And Bonnie, housing?
Housing. You and I, Will and Dave had a meeting with the gentleman from Salisbury,
Right.
and Joe Cleveland, who's the treasurer of Salisbury, and he explained to us how they budget for housing in the town and how they use it. And it was a good meeting. We had a lot of good questions
Yep.
answered, exactly how they go about it. And actually, he did send me. It's actually, one of the other organizations is run by John Carney, and we're gonna set up a meeting with him after the commission.
Yep.
So,
The interesting thing to me about that meeting was, in addition to the town having a focal point called a commission, there are 2 not-for-profits that were set up in years past, one focusing on rentals, one focusing on new homes for ownership. And these are independent 501c3s that fund themselves and also get some funding from the town. And that's the way they drive the housing, as I understood it.
Mhm.
So we're gonna, look into more of that and see whether or not that model works for us.
right, to see exactly how they work. We are supposed to have another meeting. We are having another meeting next week
Mhm.
with the Tri-Town Rojan group. And
Okay.
we'll see if there's any movement on the school or anything like that.
Good.
And then our committee is meeting again the week after that.
Good. Okay, thank you.
And actually, there's a forum in Millerton this coming weekend. There's three days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and in the library annex. Their tri-town group has done a huge, they got a grant from the community health organization, and they've set up this whole toolkit. I think there's gonna be developers there showing different models of housing, and it's a drop-by situation. So anybody can drop by in those 3 days
Okay.
to see what they, it's gonna be very interesting to see what they have
Good.
hooked up.
Good, good. Thank you. Kids camp in town pool. Ruth Van Wagner was going to join us tonight, but she had a medical emergency for her pet and won't be able to join us. But she is starting the process to get ready for camp 2023. I think it's going to start right after the 4th of July or right before the 4th of July, and then take the day off for the 4th of July because the 4th of July is a Tuesday. So she's planning that now. And I heard from Jen Boyce that she thinks she's in pretty good shape for lifeguards, which is good news.
I think we're in real good shape with lifeguards, and we have a couple that want to take the WSI course.
Perfect.
He's really optimistic with everything right at this point.
Good.
Tried to log on earlier, but she hasn't had any success
Hmm.
for whatever reason.
All right. December and January financial reports were in your package. Nothing really unusual to report. Our T-bill portfolio is now $1,758,000, maturing the end of this month in March, April, and May. And as we roll over, I will invest them in the next succeeding month until we need to use the money for something. We're earning a little bit over 4% in aggregate, and the most recent investments have been in the 4.5% range. So this is working out pretty well. Local law number 1 of 2023, which is the volunteer firefighter property tax exemption, is the next item on my list. I would like to read something to you, and that is pursuant to the authority vested in me by section 20 of the municipal home rule law, I hereby certify the necessity for the immediate passage of local law number 1, 2023, entitled Volunteer Firefighter and Volunteer Ambulance Worker Real Property Tax Exemption, given under my hand and the seal of the town of Ankrum the 16th day of February at the town hall in the town of Ankrum, signed by Arthur J. Basson, stamped by Monica Cleveland. That is necessary because the local law that we are adopting is slightly different than the one that we presented to the town board last month. And while I have circulated the new law to everybody, and that's apparently sufficient, just to make sure that we are not going to be getting caught up in a legal detail, I found out from the Association of Towns that I have this authority and can declare this to be an important thing to do immediately. Reason being, March 1st is the deadline, and we want to pass this law to give any firefighters or emergency ambulance workers who want to file the opportunity to do so. Local law number 1 has one additional minor change that I will bring to your attention, and that's in section 3, where in the second line, it says ambulance workers and unremarried spouses. We are going to take out from there unremarried spouses because unremarried spouses are listed under section 5. This was a change recommended by our attorneys a day or two ago, and I am proposing we make that change to this local law and consider this local law for adoption with that one minor change. Anybody have any questions about local law number 1 of 2023? As David mentioned earlier, there's still a lot of ambiguity about this law. We think we have it written correctly. I've discussed this and shared this with Rod McLeod, who is the lawyer for the fire district. He said this law is what he understands the law to be, and basically said it looked good to him. We still need, as David mentioned, to get a list of who is eligible And we will get that as soon as the fire district has that, which may or may not be in time for anybody to apply. And we may or may not have anybody interested in applying this year. But we are putting this on the books. I recommend we adopt this, and I have, that is all I have, I guess. So if anybody has any questions, now's the time.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
There is.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Let's do a roll call vote. Monica?
Councilwoman Khan,
Yes.
Supervisor Basson.
Yes.
Councilman Boyce. is
Recused.
recusing.
Recused.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
And does
Amy can vote,
because there's
yes,
one here.
correct.
Right. Right. Councilwoman Gold.
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay. So we have 4 in favor, 1 recused. Local law number 1 of the year 2023, the volunteer firefighter and volunteer ambulance workers real property tax exemption is adopted. Thank you very much. Okay. Town board member comments. David.
No, we need to move along.
Okay. Mr. Clark,
Deal with
moratorium.
moratorium now. As mentioned at the start of the public hearing, I have been in further consultation with Nan and with John Lyons. And based upon sorts of questions and answers, Nan is certainly in favor. John Lyons is in favor. And so therefore, I will now formally recommend that the town board delete short-term rentals from the list of hospitality-related uses in section 3 purpose that are subject to the proposed moratorium. That's the rough language. It will be turned into the refined language before we move on this measure next month.
Right.
I will further follow up Art's comments of earlier in the evening. And I will recommend that we refine the text of, again, section 3 purpose, dealing with the uses subject to the moratorium, to exclude summer camps already in operation at the time this local law takes effect. Any and all new summer camps would remain subject to the moratorium. And again, I would turn to Nan and particularly to John for the refined language that achieves that purpose. I would move each of those or together. It's for board consideration to vote. Do you want to go along with that recommendation?
Any questions for you? Jay.
You, in your conversations with John Lyons and Nan regarding the exclusion of the SDRs, could you make sure that the exclusion is narrowly tailored so not to allow a cluster SDR if that's the intent?
That's well, two things. First of all, deletion means deletion. They simply come off the list. So that's clean. I saw in the fee schedule the reference to cluster STR. I've been meaning to bring that up. I don't know what that is. There is no such term in the zoning law, in the use table. That's the only place I've seen it. So I don't know what it is, and I don't know where it came from, and I can't answer your question about it.
We can have more conversations about that later, but I think that there was some community-wide discussion that people were going to start using the SDR regs to circumvent the other use.
Okay, in that context, that's why we are dealing not just with resorts or with retreat/conference centers. That's why we are dealing with the entire panoply of hospitality related uses, because all of those definitions and the uses that they apply to have got to be cleaned up. Some have gaps that allow, that create loopholes. Some have overlaps and create confusion. And that's why we're looking at the entire realm rather than just one or two of them. That's the best response I can give you.
Short-term rentals that falls in like Airbnb and everything.
Yep,
Here, do we have a,
it's okay.
do we have a definition for resort that needs to be?
We have a definition in Article 14 for resort, resort ranch, and several other things. However, we do not have resort, et cetera, in the use table. They are not permitted. That's why Iron Star hung their hat on retreat/conference center, because resort is defined. They couldn't, but it is not permitted. It is not an allowed use currently.
Okay, so Hugh has proposed that we exclude STRs and camps currently in operation from
Summer camp.
summer camps.
Summer camp.
Summer camps currently in
I am not
operation.
talking camp. I am not talking campsite.
Understood. Summer
I'm
camps.
using that term very specifically.
Understood.
Camps in existence.
And
Is what you
in
said.
operation.
In operation. So is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
David seconds it. Any other questions? Let's do a roll call vote.
Councilman Hunt, yes. Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
Councilman Boyce?
Yes.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Gold?
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Hugh, thank you. Anything else? Okay, Amy, anything from you?
No, not at this time.
Any comments?
Can you hear me?
Nope.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had to put my microphone down. No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. No, okay, Mr. Miller.
As many of you know, we've been enjoying a very mild winter. Present company included. Got the guys growling about a little bit of a lack of overtime. Well, never came to you too. We've been hauling sand, stockpiling, stone for our summer projects. Got about half of that brought in. And over the trucks and taking what we are presently sitting in the garage, nice and washed up and happy right now. They've been there for a week.
Yep.
And we cut down trees and landed, we had quite a bit of high wind events.
Yes, we have.
And we've been patching on our roads a little bit, the dirt roads, we've been concentrating on them this week, they've put gravel and holes and stuff. Working at that. And we've also been working on our summer paving equipment, got that paver back together, yet. Let's work on this one. Got that running yesterday. And I received a quote for, I brought up last week, putting the new bodies on the two Kenworth trucks, the two 2016s, we hadn't received them in 15.
They're 2016s.
Yes, we got them in 15,
You got them in 15, okay.
but they're 15, 16.
So David, you're right. They're 8 years old.
And the quote to re-equip that with new bodies and a computer operated sander. And a few other little things is $72,400 each.
Now, you said that they have to get welded each year. How significant is the welding?
It's right on the main hinge point on the back of the body.
I just meant how much does it cost though? And what is it? I mean, what's that running?
It varies how much you reinforce it, each varies by the hour. I think I've had a couple, it's been in excess between $1,000 and $2,000 in every service.
One of those trucks projected to be replaced.
Oh.
We
no.
have a purchasing plan, right?
Yeah, it's another 10 to 12 years, I think. They've had a great, usually we got one down there, it's 22 years old.
Right.
Yeah, I'm planning on retiring.
once in a while, to each year.
It's a,
Does it work well? I mean, does it work or is
No,
it
it
something
cracked
that
again.
it's getting exceedingly worse?
So you gotta do something.
we should, it's gonna be catastrophic one of these days. Let's go.
And
It's
the
a
time,
change.
So what's gonna be catastrophic? What's gonna be catastrophic?
The body's gonna fall off the truck.
Okay, okay. that would be-
Well, or, it could roll over, it could, I mean,
Yeah. It could come off. the
if it
truck.
breaks at the wrong point in time, it could cause serious injury
Yeah.
to somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, in all reality, that's.
Jim, how soon can they do this for you?
I'm not sure. He says our new truck is not scheduled to be equipped until December. He's slated to bring it in. And he would have to get this stuff in, I have to tell him, we gotta, that's kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit. We've got to approve doing it and he'll order them. And we'll get some idea of how long it'll take to come, I guess.
Could say, at least, I mean. Doing bodies could be a long time.
I figured 1 to 2 months.
Okay.
That's what it's taken in the past when we've had it done.
Okay.
1 to 2 months to replace the body?
Well, but, it's not just replacing the body, you gotta put another.
No, I'm sorry. You're saying this might get done in 1 to 2 months?
It might, once we get everything is in,
Oh, I see.
do it.
Once they get a hold of the truck, it's gonna take that long to do it. They aren't gonna do them both at once,
No,
obviously.
No,
But
You
it may
may not
not,
wait till the new truck is in before you do one.
that's a year and a half away.
well, there'll be sometime 24.
Well, that's, I'm,
Yeah,
it just would seem like that would be the prudent. way
unless
to
they
do it.
suddenly come in this summer and squeeze one in, we'll slam it out.
Yeah.
Right, definitely when you send them.
So we have to decide we want to do this, to put in the order and then start badgering him to get it done. I'm inclined to do it. David, I know you're concerned. You thought maybe we
I
could,
hate to see spending that money on a used truck, but I mean. The true reality of it is, with the, where
It's been they're a premium truck. They're reasonably good shape and also in that price is sandblasting and painting the frames.
what do you,
which-
what do you think you could sell one of these trucks for? I mean, that's just it in the future. This is probably gonna increase our sale price in the end,
Yeah,
right?
it should. I'm guessing they'll go, right now they would bring somewhere around 100.
I mean, with the bad bodies.
So
Then
what
we'd have to spend 300 to replace it.
but you'd have 100 plus you wouldn't spend 72, so it's almost like you got 172.
Yeah.
So you're only spending 130 on the new truck,
But availability of everything too is a question. The trucks. And,
See, so there, if you could buy 2 trucks and only spend 130 for each truck on that theory. That makes it a lot more palatable to think about it.
Would these new trucks have the computer thing?
They should come the right way.
Yeah,
I gotta tell you, I think these trucks, I've talked to a lot of people about trucks. I think those trucks were the wrong trucks.
well, the bodies were.
When we bought them. Well, the bodies are, but also just how long the cabs
Yeah,
are.
They
Doesn't make it useful for plowing.
weren't what Jim thought he was getting.
They weren't the right truck for the application. I'm sorry. for that. And I'm not, it just is what it is. That's why I'd rather see us bite the bullet, spend a little more. Sell the trucks outright.
Who's gonna want to buy the trucks though?
Well, but you think, you said they might last 15 years.
They're gonna be a
Right?
different truck, a different
So-
usage for them, so it's
Yeah.
not gonna be as big a problem.
Yeah.
See, these trucks, I think, were designed to be more of an over-the-road truck,
You're a haul truck.
a haul truck.
Not a plow truck.
Not like what he's talking, what we use.
But they work and they're,
So,
the guys have gotten used to them and they're a little.
yeah, I'm not saying they're not terrible, they're just not ideal.
You wouldn't have to replace them if you did it for another 15 years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but you're still using a truck that's really not right for the job too.
Well. And how much would it cost to do all of that to the 2 trucks?
For both of them, he has 144 change
For
for
both?
both of them.
To put new bodies on both of them, do electronics on both of them, sandblast both of them.
Yeah. There's a few corners we can cut, like it's gonna require moving fuel tanks. We can do that ourselves. And there's a couple of little things, you know, like possibly take the old bodies off before they go up there. Save a little bit.
The bodies are rusted.
No, they're not rusting, they got a structural defect.
There's a crack.
So,
And we've gotten quite a discount on the bodies, by the way. He tells me it's a 19% discount. That the company recognizing that this was a problem, so they gave us a bit of a break on these new bodies.
I was gonna say, it's a structural defect in that body. But it is, is it also, could it be a structural defect? Just on the size of the truck and the way it's attached to the truck, I mean, how it operates?
No, I think it's all has to do with it. Their center chain conveyor.
I
The frame of the truck is actually the conveyor. And it makes the body set higher.
Makes it higher body. I understand that. I'm just wondering, I'd hate to see us put the new body on and a couple of years down the road have a crack too at that hinge because something's wrong. I mean, all of it's based on lengths and weight and the size of your axles and the whole 9 yards. And I mean, sometimes it's just
No, these are
the actual practice of this truck. It's not designed for this usage.
Right.
Well, the same style bodies on the other two older trucks, or the newest one and the oldest one.
Are they the
style
same
bodies.
length though?
These bodies are a foot longer,
Yeah, but that could be what's making a crack.
but the frame of the truck is longer too,
Okay.
to accommodate it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's the dynamic. And when you lift the weight, just that extra distance is what can cause your crack. That's an engineer. That's where you really need somebody. That's really.
You know, they've been around, we took them up there so they could measure it up and stuff.
Okay. I just would. Somebody measured them to start.
So you think you could sell the two trucks that we now have?
That's just a get start.
Okay, but we need to, David's point is if you don't spend 170, you can get 100. The new plow trucks are really costing
You don't
you.
get- Well,
Well,
If you
that's-
don't, I mean, it's all a crapshoot the whole way
It
around.
is a crapshoot, but how do you get a number on what that truck is worth?
I look at an auction website, you know, where they sell something similar.
Okay,
You can get comparable prices. You can almost do blue book.
you ought to take a look. You ought to take a look and see if you can get a harder number. And then the timetable is critical. If we decide.
I'll see if I can get some sort of idea out of it.
Timetable.
I think the new trucks aren't even available if we decided to go that route.
Well, I'm told the new truck, the chassis is going to arrive in March.
But I
But he's doesn't have it scheduled to be worked on, to equip the equipment until December.
I'm saying, if
That's how busy he is.
you want to sell the
Wait.
trucks and buy new ones, when could we possibly get them? They're not even.
Yeah, but if he can't put the body on that truck until December, how can he put the body on these other trucks before December? I mean, because he's got to have new trucks from other people.
Yeah.
That need bodies, so he's not gonna take one of our old trucks and put a new body on it and hold somebody off from buying a new truck, so we aren't gonna get a body on this truck till next year sometime. I can't believe,
Probably not.
you know, I mean, in all reality, I'm not,
So can we wait another month, have you do some more homework on all this, and come back to us in March with a series of options, dates, estimated,
And
this,
I'll look
that?
around for some comparables.
Yeah. Yeah.
The town of Taconic just bought a used truck. I think it was like 125 they gave for it. Then we sat around for 3 months while they're trying to fix a problem on it.
I say, I can say, they don't even have a plow on that, do they?
No.
That's just an over the road truck for them, right?
All truck, yeah.
See, that's one thing, that's what these trucks are for. You know, if you could find a place that wants to buy it for that.
All right,
I have one question. I was looking at the maintenance log that you gave us.
Mhm.
Do they get new wing blades like every year?
This is a cutting edge on the bottom of the blade. It's a wear item.
Yeah, you got to change those all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably not gonna get a new one this year because they ain't been used
Well, I
much.
think we changed 2. Just because they were half wore out from last year.
Exactly, but it wasn't, they didn't get wore out this year now.
okay, Amy, do you have any questions about all this or comments?
Okay, I'm unmuted now. And no, I'm absolutely lost when it comes to trucks. So I'm gonna have to leave it to the experts.
Okay, that's the way all of us feel, except David, Jim are the experts. Okay, So, Jim, anything else?
No.
Okay, Monica.
Oh, just one thing, we're having a rabies clinic down there, March 4th.
Yes, rabies clinic, March 4th.
That's it.
Is
Okay.
that a free rabies clinic?
Yes.
Yes.
Cats at 10, dogs at 11.
Okay.
Try not to get them there all the same. time.
What about ferrets? What time are ferrets?
So,
Oh, boy.
I don't know.
There was cats,
Oh,
but-
I never.
Cats, okay. Okay, Monica.
Just real quick, update on tax collection. As of right now, my collection rate is at 81%.
Hmm,
Picked up towards the end of the month. We have approximately 1,250 parcels in Ankrum. I collected 1,079.
Good.
So it did pick up.
I'm shocked all the time. You talked about it earlier. We send out our fundraiser each year based on tax rolls. And I can't believe how many we get back because the addresses are incorrect.
The biggest problem that we're finding is, and especially lately with all of the sales that happened, there's a piece of paper that comes down, the transfer paper, and at the very bottom right-hand corner is taxpayers mailing. And it is, for lack of a better term, crapshoot what's gonna end up in that. Sometimes the attorney puts their address in it, sometimes they put the property address in it and not the person's mailing address in it. And I mean, it's just, and we're finding also the new ones that are coming down. They are not delineating Ancrumdale or Mellerton or Pine Plains addresses. Everything's coming Ancrum 12502. And whereas I may catch something that say is County Route 8, I know it should be Ancrumdale, but somebody in a quick thing just sees Town of Ancrum and so goes through Town of Ancrum.
No.
And when it comes back, then I am catching them and resending them out. And it's been, yeah, a lot.
And you're right, there are too many different places that have like, say, a Millerton address or a Pine Plains address or even a Copeg address. You know, Boston Corners goes to Copeg, some of them, and some of it goes to Millerton.
Or Copeg.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Millerton and Copeg also.
One of the big things that I've been getting, which has been odd to me, but I've gotten several phone calls of people who have recently purchased properties and they don't know where they are. They don't know where their house is.
Hey,
Like I had one woman call and she said she had never viewed the property. She thinks it's an Ancrum, but she's not for sure. And I don't think it was an Ancrum. I think it was Gallatin or Taconic, but because they don't have a post office, they use the Ancrum post
Right.
office. Everything looks like it's Town of Ancrum. I've gotten several of them this year. So.
okay,
That's a lot, that's some of the purchases that are going on though.
yeah.
People, that I mean, have never even set foot on the property ever,
Yeah, this person
physically.
said that the broker had purchased it for her. She had seen photos of it, but she had not been in it and she'd never been to Ancrum.
I just heard that there, 1/3 of all property homes being sold are being paid for in cash.
Yeah.
And only certain people have that kind of cash. So,
Yep. Okay, Monica, thank you. No budget adjustments, but I would appreciate a motion to approve the warrants and pay the bills.
Moved.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Bonnie, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, all set there. Two resolutions to consider. One is the revised 2023 organizational resolutions. We talked at the last meeting about setting up a fixed date for the ZBA, which is now the fourth Monday. And that's in here. And in addition, Tom Brondolo has been recommended by the planning board to be the first alternate. David Dembo has resigned as CAC co-chair. We've added Elspeth Strang to the Climate Smart Community Task Force. And before David resigned, he requested that we designate Amy and Jono Meggs as associate members to reduce the number of members on CAC from 11 to 9, which David thought was the appropriate number or the legal number. Now that David has resigned, we don't need to have both of them as associate members, but they are both listed as associate members. So if there are changes to be made, we'll make them later. So those are the changes in this proposed revised organizational resolution or set of organizational resolutions. Anybody have any questions or comments? If not, could I get a motion to approve these resolutions, please? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, and the last resolution. Jim Miller has requested that we agree to reimburse him and his wife for, I guess, a Medicare Advantage program in replacing his town authorized health insurance. The cost to Jim of his Medicare Advantage program for him and Janice will be about $575, which is about $500 a month less than we are paying for town health insurance. So I strongly recommend we approve this. Any questions about this?
Turns the regular rate to 65 tomorrow.
All right.
So it's
Welcome.
Medicare.
So
Great.
can I get a motion to
Make
approve?
the motion.
Thank you, David. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, all done. Public comments. Anybody on Zoom left?
Nobody making any comments?
Jay, anything? Anybody on the town board have anything?
Question.
Yes.
Thank you. For, are we gonna be reprinting the employee handbook?
Yes.
Anytime soon? or-
Well, we're waiting for the New York State revision to the harassment policy. I've got a draft of the thing that includes the CRB code and incident report and a couple of other legal changes. But the people that are doing this for us recommended that we wait because apparently the comment period was over on February 11th for the new harassment policy.
Okay.
Now the Department of Labor has to decide what it wants to do. I'm going to find out from these people next week how long this might take. If it's going to be 6 months, we'll get something. If it's going to be a couple of months, maybe we won't.
We're
So,
gonna do it in the binders.
Yeah.
Yes, it's much easier.
Yeah, so we can add in.
I have one more small thing.
yes,
There was a mandate that was passed at the state level, regarding notaries. And it
Regarding what?
changed notary publics.
Mhm.
So I've always done notaries for the town of Acton for free. I'm a notary public on my own. It's not part of my office, but I provide that service. to the The new regulation, states, and I'm not totally completely familiar with it, so I'm just kind of ballparking it here, but I have to keep a logbook, which I have purchased. In that logbook, I have to take everybody's driver's license who comes in for a notary. It's a whole process that I have to fill out in this logbook that I am now mandated to keep. Because of that, what was normally a 2-minute process of signing my name, checking somebody's ID, and stamping it is now becoming this laborious task, filling out this whole paper in a logbook. So the reason why I'm telling you all this gets to be a little bit over the top. I may be suggesting that the town will have a small fee for the notary for using up my time, because it's taking like 10 to 15 minutes now to do.
How many times you get requested?
You know, believe it or not, that is one of my hot tickets here at town.
Well, you know that now.
And
There's so many things that they need.
so
them
many
for.
things that need to be notarized. A lot of it's in-house, but a lot of it's not. And, you know, it's taking my time away from my other duties. And, you know, I'm gonna keep track of it and see and report back, but just be aware.
okay, tell us when. Do we need a public hearing next month on local law number 2?
I don't think so, but that's one of the points that I
Okay.
need to verify with John.
So we don't have any public hearings unless you decide we want one for that. All right, good. So the next meeting will be March 16th at 7 o'clock. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn? Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
You can.
Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor?
Sure.
We're adjourned. Thank you all very much. Well, this is